What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today we have a very exciting video. We are going to be reviewing the Christopher Ward C65 Sandhurst. So this was kindly loaned into the channel by Christopher Ward, but it does have to make its way back once the review has been completed. So you can find more information about this and everything else Christopher Ward offers down in the description. There's also a link to the unboxing video where I give my first impressions and show you what you actually get bundled with this watch if you want to check that out before the review. So before we actually get started on dimensions, I actually just want to address the design. Now usually I don't do this, I get the specs out of the way first, but this one is actually quite special. Now the eagle-eyed among you might notice and recognise this design. Well, it's actually an MOD licensed, and it is actually produced in conjunction with the MOD, and it's a tribute to the Smith's W10 from 1969. And if you've seen that watch, which obviously you'll have just seen it now, there are some similarities but also some differences. So is this a homage? Is it a tribute? I'll let you be the judge of that, but you can see that it does share, a lot of design characteristics with the watch originally made by Smiths in the 60s. So now we've got that out of the way, let's talk a little bit more in detail about this watch. So this one is 38mm, 11.8mm thick. We have a standard 20mm lug width, 43.2 lug to lug, a 7.4mm screw down crown. On this supply leather strap, it weighs 84 gram. We have a very impressive water resistance of 150 meters, which is nice to see on an everyday sort of field style watch. Screw down crown, screw down case back, a boxed sapphire crystal, which is very, very nice. A little throwback to the 60s again. It's paired on a oak leather vintage strap, very, very nice. And of course we have Christopher Ward's light catcher case, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. So starting off with the bezel, it's very, very beautifully finished. Circular brushing all the way around, and then just at the very, very border of it is a lip of high polish around the perimeter, just to sort of separate it and give it a nice bit of a differentiation between that and the case. It is so well done, the nicest brushing quality I have ever seen. You can also see that crystal does protrude above the bezel, again, giving it that little bit of vintage flourish. Looking at the minute track, really cleanly printed and well done. You can see it's a train track style, and then we have these little loomed mini sort of indices all the way around, apart from at the 3, 6, 9 and 12 where you get slightly larger elongated ones. These are all loom filled, which of course I'll show you later on in the video. Moving inwards, we have your printed numerals. Again, applied wouldn't work here, obviously harking back to that 60s style, and I think it's really nice. I love the font, it's really clean, bold and legible. The printing is done to a very, very high standard as well. Underneath the 12 o'clock you can see we have the little triangle, and then below that Christopher Ward printed on the dial. Above the 6 o'clock you can see automatic chronometer. So obviously it has a COSC certified movement in it, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. And then right at the bottom, just flanking the 6, is Swiss made. Obviously this watch is made in Switzerland. The dial is very nice. It's a matte black, but there is ever so slightly a subtle texture. To me, it reminds me a lot of really high grit sandpaper, so it's just got a nice little texture. It doesn't really play with the light or anything that nicely, but in some lighting situations you can see a very, very subtle texture to it, and it just adds something a little bit different in the right lighting situations. To the handset, very, very high quality and well finished. Slither of loom in each of them, and they are very, very well executed again. Some superb finishing. The second hand is a sort of needle style with a very, very bold and contrasting white and red finish, just to really make it pop and stand out against that dial. So overall, very well executed, really legible, and just fits perfectly with the sort of vintage look that this watch is going for. Now we're going to talk about my favourite part of this watch though, and that is the case, and it is beautiful. you can just see all the mix of finishes and you know, the satinized brushing, the really mirror polish, and it just contrasts beautifully. I love the shapes, the angles, and just the level of detail and finishing is like nothing I have ever seen before. Now this is not me, you know, thinking this is literally like the nicest finished watch I have ever had hands on with, and well, I'm going to be honest, it's absolutely beautifully done. I can't deny it at all. And other people would agree with me as well. It is a beautifully finished case. I love the downturn to those lugs as well. And just look at it. I mean, it plays with the light beautifully, hence the name Light Catcher. And even the brushing just plays with the light so nicely. It is really, really well done. Onto this side again, we've got that same beautiful case finish, and then we have this really large crown, sort of a sand bead blasted finish, and then an embossed Forward logo, which is high polished to give that nice little punch of contrast. And then we have a little red accent around the perimeter, just to you know, tie in nicely with that tip on the second hand. All beautifully done, and yeah, very, very high quality and done to a high standard. So moving on to the case back, and you can see, you know, we have a mix of finishes again. We've got high polish, we have brushing, we have sort of a sandblasted, and then we have this. Now this is quite important actually. So this is a British Army heraldic, apologies if I pronounced that wrong, badge. And of course, with it being tied closely to the MOD, that is something that they were of course allowed to embellish the back of the case with, and I think it is so well done. Again, some beautiful contrast between all the finishes, and it's just done to such a good standard. And then of course you've got a few little specifications just dotted around as well. So now we're going to actually talk about the movement. So this is a COSC certified Sellita SW200, my first ever experience with a Sellita movement, but has it impressed me? Well, I'll tell you that in a minute. So specs first, it's 26 joules, 28,800 beats per hour. It has a 38 power hour reserve, which is probably one of my first complaints about this. The accuracy though is insane. It's negative flow to +6 per day. That is phenomenal. It's also auto and manual wind, and it does have hacking as well. And you do also actually get something along with each one of these watches. You get a little booklet which shows you all the information you need to know about this movement. So you can see, going from left to right, you can see the number of days the watch was tested for, the temperature. You can see we have 23 degrees and 8, which goes in line with their standard. I'll pop it on screen now. It's the COSC certification, something, I think it's in French, and obviously I don't really understand that, but I'll pop it on screen now. And here is all the different testing procedures that they do. You can see all the different positions. They've in vertical, horizontal and vertical, face up, face down, and every different position that they put the watch in and test it. You can also see right here is the variation. So this is the accuracy in these different positions, and you can see just how crazy good it is. And then finally you have the sort of differences between the extremes. So this is something you get with every single purchase, and it's unique to every single watch. And I think that's a really nice little touch as well, to show you that, you know, they've gone to that extra effort to get these movements done to this very, very high standard. So that's really cool to see. Doesn't mean that this movement is perfect though. I have noticed that this rotor is a little bit noisy. Now I'm not talking Miyota noisy, it's definitely not as bad as that, but in some occasions when you do actually give it a little bit of a shake, it can get a little bit audible. Now it's not like really bad in a bad way, it actually sounds really quite reassuring in fact, but it is a little bit noisy, which it's something I wasn't really expecting. I was expecting it to be sort of dead silent, but no, it does have a little bit of noise. But yeah, definitely anything too alarming. So let's take a look at this crown, and this crown is massive. Again, it's 7.4 millimeters, and it has such a nice grip to it, and the size of it is just bang on. It is so easy to use. You just literally give it an unscrew, and the engagement as well is perfect. It just catches like it's supposed to, unscrews like it's supposed to, and it just feels absolutely fantastic. So you can see it's still moving because we've not actually engaged the movement fully. We're actually on the winding phase only. And now if you pop it out again, you can see that second hand stops, and then you can actually adjust the movement, and it is so nice to use. The winding feels fantastic, and this is equally as nice. I also wanted to point out just how thick that stem is as well. Really, really robust, and it's definitely not going to, get damaged or anything anytime soon. But yeah, such a smooth and easy to use movement. It is fantastic. Apart from, like I said, the little rotor noise, this is just the best movement I've ever felt. It is so, so good. Like I said, my other little concern is the power reserve. 38 hours. It means you are going to have to wear this watch quite regularly, to keep it working. But in use, it's so easy to use with that big crown. It's no trouble whatsoever, really. It unscrews perfectly, catches back and screws back in perfectly. So no complaints whatsoever. It's really buttery smooth as well. So there's minor little complaints, it's one of them things. Better power reserve would definitely be more important though than the obvious rotor noise. But that's just my little tiny complaint with this watch. So now we're going to actually talk the strap, and this is another real strong suit for this watch. So this is a camel vintage oak leather, and it is beautiful. It is so comfortable, but more on that in a minute. The finishing, really nice, and you can just see where I have mine on the second to last. Nice padding at the top, really clean and uniform, stitching all the way through, as you'd expect at a watch costing as much as this. Quick release, which is always nice to see, and then you can see we've got that heat stamp there. I'm not really sure what this is, the 20ST. I don't know whether that's something they put on all their straps or not. I've been the first Christopher Ward. I don't really know if that's something they do all that often. You can see, again, Italian vintage oak leather. Quick release, really nice high quality leather keepers. So we've got one fixed in place, stitched, and then one that is free floating to obviously handle the excess of this one. The buckle is another area that is good, but it's not bad per se. It's just the design. I think they're sort of trying to do it a little bit vintage, but to me it's just the shape of it. I think it could have been a little bit more interesting. I just think it's a little bit plain. I mean, I love the branding, the finishing is superb, and the quality of it, fantastic. Can't complain there. I just think it's a little bit plain Jane. It's the best way to describe it, I guess. It's just, the designer it. I was just expecting something, a little bit with a bit more flourish. Like, I mean, look at the case, and you just see how beautiful that is. I'm just expecting, maybe even just a little chamfer on it, a little polished edge, but just something, just to make it feel a little bit, more premium than it is. But yeah, let's pop this on wrist and show you what this wears like. Right guys, so here it is on wrist, and you know what? It just wears absolutely beautifully. Those lugs sit really nice. Lovely flow and curvature to that case. I mean, it doesn't hug quite perfect on my wrist, but it's just one of my issues with my wrist. It's not an issue with the watch. My wrist is a very, very weird shape. It's really flat on the top. So sometimes I get like a little bit of a gap, but that's just my wrist. It is so strange. Obviously, if you've got a slightly more rounded out and thicker wrist, then it's probably going to hug a lot nicer. Does that impact comfort? Not at all. It is still a really lovely watch to wear. No overhang at all either, with it having such small lug to lug and a small diameter. It fits absolutely perfectly. Of course, those downturn lugs bring the strap down nicely, and this strap, super soft and supple as well. It didn't take much breaking in. I mean, after a few days, it had already started to soften up and really sort of break in. But to be honest, I've wore this watch so much that, that's no surprise it's broken as quick as it has. But yeah, it's super comfortable. Loads of adjustment holes left over for you guys with thicker wrists. So yeah, it's definitely a versatile watch. You can wear it on, loads of different wrist sizes, right from, slender, because we do have one adjustment hole left, so you could probably, get away with it on a slightly slimmer wrist than myself. You could also pop it on a different strap as well. It'd probably look really nice on a NATO or maybe even an alternative leather. But to be honest, if this one fits you, you're probably going to want to keep it on this because it is so good. It's soft, it's comfortable. The inner material feels great against your skin. No fatigue. Really nice. Even though this strap's quite thick, it just bends and conforms so well. So yeah, no real complaints with the strap either, apart from, you know, the buckle being a little bit generic in terms of its design. I think it, like I said, it could have done with a little bit more flourish to it. So let's pop this off and talk verdict. So guys, what do we think of this? Is it worth its £840 retail? Now I'm going to approach this from two different perspectives. My perspective, which is an affordable watch enthusiast, and also someone who perhaps could afford this a little bit more comfortably, let's say. So from my perspective, is this something I would save for? Now, usually my ballpark is around under £300 for a watch, so this is quite in another league for me. This is luxury for me, if you think of it as a price perspective. So is this something I would save for? And you know what? I think it would be. I think it's pretty much near enough everything that I'd want in a watch. It's got that really great accurate movement. Yeah, the power reserve isn't the best, but I think I could learn, you know, to live with it, because I probably wear this watch so much that I wouldn't need to wind it or, you know, give it a shake before I wear it. And also the lack of date as well makes it a lot easier to get on with that power reserve, because you're not having to set the date as well, because obviously there is no date to set. So yeah, this is definitely something I would consider saving for. Now let's approach it from a different perspective. Say if you've got a grandish to spend on a watch, is this something you should consider? Well, if you look at sort of similarly priced rivals with the same like spec watch, same build, same finish and all that, you're going to be looking at, I'd say, north of £1,000 for this movement with the you know, COSC certification, the level of finishing, the build and everything. Yeah, I think you're going to be, you know, over £1,000. So this actually seems, I mean, obviously I don't have hands-on, I'm just basing this off, you know, research I did with other similarly priced watches. And I think this one is very fairly priced compared to them. Like I said, if you're looking at one of the big, you know, Swiss brands that make something similar, then you're going to be paying, you know, 1,000 plus. I mean, yes, I mean, Christopher Ward, I mean, they've earned a really good reputation in the industry, but they don't quite have that heritage that a lot of other big Swiss brands, well, a lot of big Swiss brands have. So it all depends on your perspective. Do you want a big brand and do you want to pay a little bit extra for that big brand? Or would you want to pay, you know, that little bit less, save your money and get something as equally well built and stuff like that? So it depends what you look for as a collector. Do you collect the name or do you collect the watch? And I'll leave it with that. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.